Hi guys, welcome back to another session. Today we're going to discuss chapter 3 from grade 6 CBSE, and the name of the chapter is The Shepherd's Treasure. Now what do you understand by treasure? Treasure is something that's valuable. It could be money, it could be jewels, gems, gold that holds a lot of value to itself. And who's a shepherd? A shepherd is a man who takes care of sheep. So this story throws light about very important human values. For example, honesty. For example, wisdom. For example, being more helpful, nice, courteous, respectful. And we learn how does a shepherd who has all those values happen to become a governor, though he's not very educated. He lives in a village in Iran, but he's very wise and helpful. He's very popular among all the people in that village. He's known for his intelligence, for his wisdom. And so he happens to meet the king, who decides to appoint him as the governor. He even collects tax. He's given a big responsibility. But what happens next? Let's find out in this chapter. Let's learn from it. In a village in Iran, there once lived a shepherd. He was very poor. He did not have even a small cottage of his own. He had never been to school or learned to read and to write, for there were very few schools in those days. So, shepherd is a person who takes care of sheep, and cottage basically means a very small house. So the narrator is trying to tell us that there was a poor shepherd, a poor man, a poor person who lived in Iran. He was so poor that he didn't have a huge bungalow to live. He used to take care of his sheep, and because there were less number of schools back in those days, he didn't even get the opportunity to go to a school, learn how to read, write. But let's see what happens next. Though poor and uneducated, this shepherd was very wise. He understood people's sorrow and troubles and helped them face their problems with courage and common sense. Many people came to him for advice. Soon he became famous for his wisdom and friendly nature. The king of that country heard about him and thought of meeting him. So though he was very poor, he was illiterate, but he was very, very wise. He was very intelligent among all the people in his area. He understood them. He was able to understand the people, their feelings, their pain. And he always used to help them to solve their problems with his intelligence. Wisdom, it means with his intelligence, with his knowledge. He was friendly. He wasn't arrogant. He was very kind. So what happened? His popularity reached the king, and the king thought of meeting him. Disguised as a shepherd and riding on a mule, one day the king came to the cave where the wise shepherd lived. As soon as the shepherd saw the traveler coming towards the cave, he rose to welcome him. He took the tired traveler inside the cave and gave him water to drink. and a share of his own meager meal. The king rested for the night in the cave and was greatly impressed by the shepherd's hospitality and wise conversation. So let me write the word meanings. First of all, disguised. Okay, I'm going to write it too. Then I have, would you understand by mule is any word? Okay. Meager is 3. Hospitality is 4. So first one, it means you try to hide your identity. You don't dress up as to who you are. Mule is offspring of a horse. Meager means less in amount, very less in amount. And hospitality means warm reception, warm welcome, or reception. Okay, so now I'm going to explain this, guys. What happens? The king, he tried to conceal his identity, which means he didn't come in front of the shepherd as a king. He dressed up as a shepherd. He himself dressed up. He disguised his identity. He dressed up. He did hide his identity, and he dressed up as a shepherd, and hiding his true identity, the king reached the shepherd's cave on a mule. So the moment the shepherd noticed him coming to his cave, the shepherd wasn't aware that he's the king. He just got up to greet him, to welcome him, and he brought that traveler who looked tired. He got him inside his cave, offered him water, food. So the king, who was acting as a shepherd, who was dressed up like a shepherd, he took rest in the cave, stayed with the original shepherd for the night, and he was quite impressed. The king was impressed by his nature, the friendly nature, the warm reception, and his intelligence. Because they did have conversations, so when they used to talk, the king was really impressed. Though still tired, the king decided to depart. Depart means leave. Next morning, he said, "Many thanks for your kindness to a poor traveler. I have a long way to go. Permit me to leave." So what happens? The king, he was still feeling very tired, but he decided he has to leave the place. So he did so. The next morning he left, and he did express his thanks, his gratitude to that poor shepherd who didn't have much to offer, but still with an open heart, he welcomed the king, disguised as a shepherd, and welcomed him, had offered him his kind hospitality. So the king asked for permission to leave. Looking straight into the eyes of his guest, the shepherd replied, "Thank you, your majesty, for paying me the compliment of a visit." So now the shepherd, who was really wise, this suggests that the shepherd was wise enough. He came to know that the person is not a shepherd. The person who visited him isn't a shepherd. He addressed that person as king. He called him Your Highness, Your Majesty. He looked straight into the eyes of the kings and expressed his gratitude. He said, "Thank you. You are a king and you did visit me. That means a lot to me. So thanks a lot." Can you see him? He's saying thank you. The king was astonished. as well as pleased. The king was surprised. He was shocked, and at the same time, he was pleased. He was happy. He is indeed very wise. He thought to himself, I need people like him to work for me. And the king appointed this humble, not so proud shepherd, the governor of a small district. So now the king was wondering, and he started to just think that what did he do that made the shepherd think that he's not a shepherd but a king? So the minute he heard those words, he was like, wow. He was astonished, he was surprised and happy. He did appreciate the wisdom of the shepherd. He thought that the shepherd was actually very wise, intelligent, and he needed people like him to work for him. So he thought he must work for me, and he appointed him as the governor of a small area, of a small district. So let's see what happens next. Although he rose to power and dignity. Dignity, guys, it basically means quality of being worthy of honor, like where you're respected, where you are recognized. So, of course, being the, governor, it's quite an honor, right? You are. Okay, so the shepherd remained as humble as ever. People loved and honored him for his wisdom, knowledge, sympathy, and goodness. He was kind and just to one and all. His fame as popularity, fame means popularity, as a fair and wise governor soon spread throughout the country. Now what happens here? The people liked him and really did appreciate his wisdom, knowledge, kindness. His behavior was just to everyone. He treated everyone with kindness, with affection. So he used to behave morally right. He was very fair. So just means being very fair. So in no time he became very popular throughout the country, not only in his area, but throughout the country. So let's see what happens next, but we'll check that in the next session. So please stay tuned. Thank you.